It looks like it's going to be easier for the Reds to keep their key players moving forward.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Jeff Carr, and on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, trade on everything. A little bit later on, we are going to hear from Jimmy Stein from Locked On Bama on what Justin LeBron brings to the Reds organization. Yeah, the Reds got LeBron. It's not that LeBron. And here in just a few minutes, we'll break down that draft class a little bit further because Baseball America marked a couple of other guys that they are very intrigued that the Reds got these dudes in their system. But we are going to begin with how things could change for the Reds to favorably keep their stars moving forward. Because we've heard a lot of different proposals. And look, these are going to change quite a bit from now to then. But I like the bones of these proposals that we've heard from the owners and from the players when it comes to the CBA. Because the Reds core is Elly De La Cruz, Sal Stewart, Chase Burns, and Hunter Green. It is. I know that we keep hearing these weird trade rumors about Hunter Green and all this other stuff, but like, dude's awesome when he's on the field. Chase Burns can be your everyday ace, and hopefully Hunter Green has us a season where he actually throws 30 starts. But like, as far as talent goes, those are the four guys you're building around. And I really believe that the new CBA proposals that we're hearing are going to make it easier for the Reds to hold on to these guys because you know, and I know, that whenever we see a dude go off for longer than a week, you know, not JJ Bleday, like Sal Stewart. When we see Sal Stewart, the first thing that we're thinking of, the Reds aren't going to keep him. He's already too expensive. He's had more than one good month. He's too expensive for the Reds to keep. And that's a horrible place to be. And I'm really tired of being there. But we heard a proposal. And this was a little bit ago. This isn't like breaking news. It didn't just happen yesterday, but we haven't really discussed it a ton on the show, and I really wanted to dive into what it could do for the Reds core, and that's looking at what the owners have proposed. And I kind of want to put a caveat before we dive into this. I am not saying that I'm pro-owner. I'm pro-baseball. I just want baseball to be good, and I want the competitive balance to be there, and I want there to be a lot of good things and good abilities for the Reds to move forward because right now it kind of feels bleak. And yeah, we are at a place where it feels like they've got to change the rules for our team to operate in a better environment, but that's where we are. Anyway, I like what the owners have proposed because they proposed contract limits. And I've got a graph on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on a podcast app, I'll explain it. Basically, what the owners are proposing are limiting contract terms specific to free agency. Now, there is a little bit of a soft cap on like, okay, if a guy has a certain number of Major League service years, they can have a certain number of max contract years and things like that. The idea being that they're trying to limit the idea of like a 15-year or a 20-year, things that we just know are ridiculous. But what I really like the most about this is they're putting a cap. They're putting a governor, I guess, if you were, if you're like me and you love a good lawnmower. You've got a limit on free agent deals. So if a guy leaves in free agency, he can get a max of 6 years and $265 million. That's just based on what the initial math will be, because as the salary cap will grow in years to come, so will this number. But it won't grow higher than somebody retaining their own player. So when the Reds look at Sal Stewart, when the Reds look at Elly De La Cruz, and you and I both know that they're not keeping Elly De La Cruz under the current economic structure, they could under this structure. Because there's a limit to the contract total, and I think that will change dramatically. But the bones of this are what I'm most interested in. The ability for teams to retain talent. And I'm not saying that I advocate if you're a baseball history buff and you remember the reserve clause. I'm not saying that. There was a clause once upon a time ago, and if you don't know this, the reserve clause basically said the only way a player leaves a team is if the team trades him or releases him. There was no such thing as service time or free agency, there's service time based on retirement and all that other stuff. But when it came to how players moved, that's not the way this game has always operated. The reserve clause was finally dissolved in the 70s, and you got free agency and all this other stuff. And it's been a work in progress ever since then to get this right. But I definitely think that there is a mix that can be had. Because as of right now, you and I both know Elly ain't staying. You and I both know if Chase Burns doesn't sign within the next year or two, he's not staying. There's a chance that if the Reds don't sign Sal Stewart within the next year or two, they ain't staying. All under the current system. So, if the rules makers change the rules and help out the Reds, I know how annoying that sounds, but trust me on this one, this is what's happening. Economic structure of baseball is going to change. Whatever this might look like, I think it's going to be similar to this, where it's limiting how much a player can make relative to free agency. The idea being that if they stay with their team, they can make more money. And then I think we will see, there's going to be a byproduct of this, because we see it in other sports. You don't really see a lot of guys demand trades, hold out, stay out of practice, stay out of games because they want to be traded somewhere else. This will happen under a salary cap, under a, limit your ability to make money regime. And so we'll see that. But I don't think we're going to see every player do it. So that'll be something that comes with this. But hear me out. I think that this is great for the Reds. And I think that for us as Reds fans, this is great. I want to see something like this, because right now, I don't believe that the current form of the Cincinnati Reds has any ability to keep Elly De La Cruz, has any ability to keep Chase Burns, and they should. And that's a silly thing for me to be worried about right now. And we try to tell everybody, don't worry about these things right now when it's 4, 5, 6 years down the road. But that's the first thing that we Reds fans inevitably think of when a guy goes on a hot streak. It was boy, I don't think we'll be able to keep this guy. And they do have a core. I've seen some folks say that they need to blow everything up and start over. They've got a core. You build around Sal, Elly, Chase, and Hunter. Because Hunter is signed. Listen, I understand that Hunter Green has really dealt with injuries, and I've been critical of the injuries as well, because it just feels like they keep piling up, and it feels like we may never see him pitch a full year. But the deal that he is on for the Reds sort of protects the Reds from that. They're not paying him like they should. They're paying him very smartly, because he's probably worth double what he's making based on how he can pitch when he is healthy. Look at guys like Jacob deGrom and guys like that who, yes, they were in the Cy Young race early on in their career, and then they hit a point where they just kept getting hurt, and that's all they do. They just get hurt. But they still make oodles of money. That's not what Hunter Green's doing right now, and the Reds have him under team control for multiple years this way. So you can build around him. And I think that the Reds, they're looking at a system that might make it a lot easier to build moving forward, because there's not going to be any more of this, well, we're only going to have this guy for a finite amount of time. And you can divvy up the salary cap and how those contracts really affect that and all this other stuff. And we will do that as we sort of get a more focused approach, because like I said, right now, what we have heard is bound to change dramatically between now and even the end of the season, much less now and whenever we might start missing games next year and all that other stuff. But I like where this is going as a Reds fan, except for the part about missing games. That's a whole nother conversation. But let's dive into what's happening now, because the draft really added a lot of talent to the Reds farm system, but it should only be the beginning of that process. All throughout the Major League Baseball season, even during the All-Star break, you can trade everything over on Kalshi related to Major League Baseball. In fact, right now, Kalshi has a market at 18% for the Reds to win 80 or more games. So 18% chance for the Reds to win 80 or more games. One of the things I love about Kalshi is that it shows you the progression of a given market. Like back on April 30th, the Reds were trading at 84.4% to win 80 or more games. Now they're all the way down to 18%, which if you were to make a $100 trade on that and the Reds were to win 80 or more ball games, the payout would be $473.48. Over on Kalshi, by the way, you're trading against peers in the live market, which means that there's no house. And as the odds change, you can trade in and out of your position. Check out Kalshi today. Download the Kalshi app. Go to Kalshi.com and use the promo code Locked On to get $10 when you trade $10. That's Kalshi. Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 and up only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Kalshi.com/regulatory. And support for today's episode also comes from Indeed sponsored jobs. Look, when things are going crazy around the Locked On MLB sphere, maybe I've got multiple shows that I've got to fill, Indeed sponsored jobs helps me so much because I can set my preferences. I can set exact specifications for what I'm looking for. And Indeed sponsored jobs helps me find the best candidate for my job. It makes the process so much more simple, and it cuts down on the time it takes for you to get back to full strength. Got to check out Indeed sponsored jobs right now because listeners of today's show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status that it deserves over at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on today's Locked On Reds podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? That's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Thanks for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine, making us your first listen. However many listens you listen to Locked On Reds, whether it's us or Tim Daniel on the postcast, we appreciate you. If you haven't made the Locked On Reds Everydayer Club part of your routine, you should. Check out lockedonreds.supercast.com to learn more about this. You get an ad-free feed, so no ads and just Reds talk. And you get so much more. There's more information at the link in the description below. All right, the Cincinnati Reds, as we talked about already, they got LeBron. Justin LeBron, shortstop out of Alabama for their first-round pick. And we talked a little bit about the criticism of the pick because we're critical of it. You know, it feels like all the Reds do is pick shortstops. But honestly, when you look at the draft, they technically only picked like 4 shortstops. The rest of the draft, they spent picking other positions. There was a catcher who we'll talk about a little bit more whenever Jimmy Stein from Locked On Bama joins us here in just a minute. 8th-round pick for the Reds there that I think he's going to add to the catcher depth of the system. I don't necessarily know how big of a, pro prospect. I mean, hopefully he makes it to the major leagues, but we'll see about that. But there were a lot of other guys that the Reds picked in this draft that, got the eyebrows raised. Baseball America started first with Justin LeBron because they said that, if you see Justin LeBron on the right day, he looks like he can elevate your franchise to the next level. He is an all-world talent with all the tools, all the athleticism that you can stand. He's an amazing base runner, amazing base stealer. So hopefully we're going to see the Reds here in the coming years get back to that whole, hey, let's steal a bag every once in a while. But it feels like Justin LeBron has a very high ceiling, and if the Reds can unlock that, they can really take a nice step forward with this dude, wherever he might be, if it's shortstop, if it's center field, wherever that is. And we get a lot of great stuff from Jimmy Stein about Justin LeBron coming up here next. He really loves his glove albeit he knows that the consistency needs a lot of work, which is what scouts also say. Consistency is something he'll have to work on. But Baseball America really enjoyed a couple of other guys in this draft for the Reds because they marked 3 other players outside of Justin LeBron that we need to watch. And so I'm going to keep my eye on them because Baseball America knows what's up. 4th round pick Ethan Norby, 5th round pick Dylan Bowen, and 13th round pick, bit of a deep sleeper, but bear with us on this, Kenny Ishikawa. Because let's start with him. It's a crazy deep dude to be like, man, 13th round pick, that's what you're excited about? He's a legitimate two-way player. And he didn't have the best stats in college as a pitcher in his final year, but he has stuff. And in years before that, he was a good pitcher. He just struggled due to injury, and he just didn't quite get right on the mound for Georgia in 2026, but he hit well. I mean, he slashed .336, .475, .472. He had 3 homers and 6 doubles, and he mostly played left field for Georgia last season. But he's a guy who would have been higher up on folks' boards had he not suffered an injury at the beginning of the season and missed like a whole month. Because otherwise, scouts really kind of like him. I mean, they give him a 50 grade, which is average. You know, the scouting scale of 20 to 80. 20 is, why are you here? 80 is, you're a Hall of Famer already. He's got a 50 on pretty much all of his pitching scouting grades, like control, command, slider, curveball, all 50s, which means that he's a pretty average dude, you know, a solid major league player with those levels. And he has a 55 grade fastball, so slightly above average. So nothing too crazy that's jumping out at you, but also scouts don't hate his pitching stuff either. But they also like his contact-oriented approach. He's a left-handed hitter. He could be something very interesting to watch in Kenny Ishikawa. I would expect, 13th round pick, he's definitely going to start in the Arizona Complex League. We're not going to see him in Dayton even for probably a year or two. But at the same time, he's a guy to keep an eye on. Another one that they mentioned in the 4th round, Ethan Norby, is very interesting because he is a pitcher that scouts gave a 60 grade to his slider. They really like his slider, and they give his control about a 45. So, again, he's a stuff over command guy. The idea that the Reds have really approached their pitching development with is that guys with stuff will work on the command. Hasn't worked out for them a ton this year. They've really dealt with walk issues, but if they can build up guys like this that come in here with 60 grade pitches like that, he also has a cutter that has a 55 grade to it. That's going to be very interesting to see, but he's a lefty. Ethan Norby is a lefty pitcher. He's coming here from East Carolina. He's a little bit smaller is what they say, but like he has a really good, track record all throughout college. He had a 3.91 career ERA over 38 starts and 239 and 2/3 career innings. He also held a 30% strikeout rate to 7.2% walk rate. It's not fair to take college numbers and set them to MLB numbers, so I'm not going to say that, but like those are good numbers. Those are good numbers to look at, especially in a dude that you got in the 4th round. In fact, Baseball America had him ranked pretty highly on their draft prospect rankings, had him in the top 100, and the Reds picked him 122nd overall. But then the other dude that they talked about on top of Justin LeBron, so they also had Ethan Norby, Kenny Ishikawa, and then their 5th round pick, Dylan Bowen. Dylan Bowen coming out of Oklahoma, or he's a high school player. He was committed to Oklahoma State. He is 19 years old right now. He's a righty, and it's interesting because he was rated pretty highly on the Baseball America Draft prospect rankings, at least as far as high school players are concerned. He was in the top set, or number 71, just outside the top 70. And the Reds got him with the 154th overall pick. So a little bit of a nice value there. He's an interesting player in that there were a lot of folks that didn't like his tools as he was going through high school. They thought he was more skill-based. And, if you ever hear folks talk about the draft, there are teams that value traits more than tools, or skills more than tools. And there are other teams that flip-flop that. They value tools over traits. And usually the Reds are a tools over traits team. So for their scouting department to have marked this kid and said he's really improved on his tools and his physical attributes, the ability to make contact, his power at the plate, his arm, his speed, all those things. There's something to this kid. Dylan Bowen, obviously he's going to start pretty low in the system, Arizona Complex League. I think that there's a chance that Ethan Norby might start at Daytona, but it's likely that all three of these guys are Complex League players, at least to begin their careers, and then we'll see them move up. I think it's likely that Ethan Norby is the first of these three that we would see, assuming that their process goes well, because that's the other part of this, as we talked about yesterday. Drafting does not mean, okay, we got this guy, we can expect him here, because there's a journey that they go through, whether it's injury, whether it's, they just don't quite cut it. This happens all the time. Justin LeBron's the guy with the best ceiling of this class, but there could definitely be some sleepers in here that provide value to the Reds farm system as we move forward. I'm excited to see how the Reds continue to add to that farm system, though, because they will certainly be sellers at the trade deadline. I really don't think they go on some kind of run and flip that narrative. And then they should add some guys who are hopefully very close to the major leagues that can then fill this gap, because right now it feels like there's a talent gap in the Reds farm system where there's not really a lot of guys who are ready right now. We're probably looking 2 or 3 years down the road before we really get that next big wave of talent for the Reds to be calling up. And so what's at the major league level right now needs some help, but also what's at the AAA level right now needs some help too. So hopefully we see the Reds add to that with some good dudes and make this trade deadline really work for them. Coming up next, we will dive further into the value that Justin LeBron brings to the organization and if the Reds got themselves a future catcher. Baseball players are known for their routines. Whether it's a lucky jersey, a pregame ritual, or sticking to the same preparation every single day, consistency is what matters. And when it comes to hair thinning, there can be a lot of products out there making promises, but not always a lot of confidence behind them. That's why more people are looking for solutions backed by real science and trusted experts. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand and the official hair growth partner of Major League Baseball. What really makes Nutrafol stand out is not that it's a one-size-fits-all approach. It's designed to fit into your routine while addressing the root causes of thinning with personalized solutions. You should find out why Nutrafol is the only hair growth supplement trusted by Major League Baseball. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's the promo code LOCKEDONMLB over at Nutrafol.com for $10 off your first month. Well, as everydayers will know, I've said it about 30 or 40 times to this point, the Reds got LeBron. Just not that LeBron. Justin LeBron is heading to Cincinnati, first-round pick by the Cincinnati Reds in the 2026 MLB Draft. And I thought I would get Jimmy Stein from Locked On Bama to give me the inside info on Justin LeBron. We're also going to talk about Brady Neal here in just a few minutes to see what he brings to the catcher position for the Reds farm system. But Justin LeBron is the man when it comes to the Reds draft in 2026. And let's start with this, Jimmy, because I've seen so many reports about him that he's very athletic, very toolsy, and at any given day can just look like the dude that is going to turn your franchise around.
He's got an it factor. I would never proclaim to be some sort of MLB scout like Clint Eastwood in Trouble with the Curve. I'm not that guy. But when Justin LeBron was a true freshman, I went to practice. I went to watch a fall practice, which is the baseball version of football spring practice. I went to a fall practice at Alabama. 40 kids on the field. 25 of them are new. You know, even as a seasoned watcher, you don't know who most of these kids are. And I promise you guys, I looked out there and I'm like, who is that kid at shortstop? He glides. There's an it factor with Justin that jumped off the field for me the very first time I saw him. I couldn't believe, like, who is that guy? He's extremely athletic. He just has, again, that undefinable it factor that everyone who's a sports fan can't define it, but you know what it is. That's Justin. He's carried himself like that since day one at Alabama. He was a star from game one, day one, as a true freshman in the best league in college baseball. So gosh, at Alabama, we're gonna miss him greatly, and it's his presence as much as anything else.
I heard somebody say, and it was Harold Reynolds. I was trying to remember who said it. Harold Reynolds likened him to a quarterback on the baseball field.
He did. He compared him to Jalen Hurts, and as silly as it is to compare an NFL quarterback to a shortstop that goes in the first, that it factor is there. In that way, there is some similarities there. They carry themselves like professionals. They did from the day they showed up. Jalen Hurts, true freshman, game one, day one starter. We see how his career's worked out. Justin LeBron's been that way at Alabama. He's been a star from the jump. Great athlete, great kid on top of everything else. Reds fans are going to love the person Justin LeBron. Now, there are some legitimate questions about the fact that in his junior season, his year 3, it wasn't always great. I think he hit 230 in SEC games. That's not good. That's not what you typically see with first-round picks. Now, what alleviates that is, the hitting he did as a freshman, sophomore. He's still a fantastic prospect, but there's work to do. But that's what the minor leagues are for, right?
Right. And that's where a lot of folks, whenever they heard about this draft pick, and immediately some of the reports that people were writing about him was, any given moment can look like your franchise guy, but. And it was the but that kind of had Reds fans concerned, because we've had a lot of guys that scouts have fawned over as they've come up through the minor leagues. They get to AAA, they go crazy, and we're like, here we go. And then they get called up to Cincinnati, and you just never really see them put it together. And it feels like that was a little bit of what they were saying. I don't think they were going as far to say that, there's no chance he can get rid of it, but the consistency factor was a huge question for them. Kind of how did you see that manifest itself in SEC play? Like we have looked at the batting average and found the interesting validity in the 236 or 23-6, the two numbers that LeBron has in the NBA. So there's that. But the other side of that being 236 in SEC play is not very good.
No, it's not. It's not. But there was a Justin LeBron before his junior year. He's not regressing. I'm guessing a lot of the pressure got to him. Alabama had a very good year. They're a very good team this year. Some expectations built up. He's the guy that's supposed to carry the team. He also didn't have a lot of help in the lineup. For an Alabama team that actually made it to Omaha to the World Series, they weren't a great hitting team, and Justin was supposed to carry a lot of that load. In fact, as bad as his stats were, and they are bad in some respects, think of this. He became the first SEC player since 2001 to have 15 homers and 40 stolen bases in a single season. So
that's pretty good.
We're talking about how terrible it is, and then he does something that no player in the league has done in 20 years in terms of the power and the speed. But I think the best way to describe what Justin LeBron is defensively this year. It wasn't great. It wasn't great. He may have, this might be wrong, but it might be right. He may have led the league in errors, which is like, whoa, is he even going to stick at shortstop? But this is what he also led the league in. If college baseball had a Major League Baseball Tonight on ESPN, he'd have been on Web Gems every night. His range, the highlight plays, the gold star plays, the going deep into the hole, throwing somebody out, charging the ball, the all-star unbelievable wow plays, he led the league in that for sure. He gets to balls other shortstops wouldn't. He's got a great arm. But every now and then, the two-hopper, the Sunday hop, and it's easy, and a slow runner, and he gets to take his time. he sails the throw, 10 feet over the first baseman's head. I think a lot of it is solvable. But what he brings to the table that most mortals cannot is why he is the 18th pick in the draft.
What was your favorite play of his this past year?
It would have to be defensively. There's so many. It's hard to bring up just one, but I think I think it was against Arkansas, and this is just a shaky memory, but I believe he made an error that had everyone in the stands shaking their heads going, what is wrong with Justin this year? And then like 2 batters later, he's diving in the hole, throws somebody out from his knees. And you're like, well, that's why we're losing him after this year. And he's going to be a multimillionaire. That's Justin. Fantastic athlete. It's not great all the time. That's what the Reds have to solve. And that's why, they're professional coaches, the minor leagues. It'll do him a lot of good. But I do think he'll be in the major leagues quickly because he has otherworldly skills that very few have.
I'll be very interested to see how the Reds can develop him. It sounds like he's got all the tools. You just kind of got to make sure you get them all focused in. And
That's right.
While I got you too, I definitely want to talk about Brady Neal, the catcher in the 8th round, because the Reds have quite a need. In fact, it was a couple of years ago that the Reds had a couple of different guys that were ranked in different prospect rankings at the catcher position. And literally all those guys have kind of fallen away. There's one dude, the top prospect in the organization, Alfredo Duno. He is close-ish. And then the next catcher behind him is 18 years old. So this is the land of opportunity for a kid that can come up and really prove, especially defensively, that they can be a good catcher. How does Brady fit into that?
Man, this is a really interesting kid. And I realize he's an 8th round pick. Big time recruit out of high school, signed with the LSU, played his freshman year for LSU, which is a fantastic program. Didn't get on the field, utilized the transfer portal, chose Alabama. Played immediately at Alabama because he's a good defensive catcher and was very mature, didn't hit at all. As a matter of fact, using his own words, and I'm not sure what words you can use here on your show, but using his own words to describe his sophomore and junior year with the bat, I sucked. That's what Brady Neal told the media. He was not a great hitter. He was a defense first guy, and that's why he got on the field. All of a sudden, out of nowhere this year, he became a great hitter. He actually had better offensive numbers than Justin LeBron in terms of OPS, in terms of the power and the RBIs. He hit behind Justin LeBron in the lineup. His bat was so good, and Alabama was struggling as a team, they actually moved him away from catcher. But it shows what kind of an athlete he is. He played right field most of the season, not because he was a problem at catcher. It was because Alabama was trying to find a way to get as many quality bats in the lineup as they could, and that necessitated the move from Brady catcher to right field. But there's no doubt this dude is a catcher. He's a catcher at the pro league level. He was a very good defensive catcher in the SEC, even as a sophomore. So I don't think the catching is going to be an issue for him at all. The question is this bat that he showed in his senior year, which was fantastic, is that who he is? Literally, sophomore and junior year, he struggled to keep his head above the Mendoza line in the SEC. This was a all-defense, no-hit guy that all of a sudden had an OPS over 1,000 in his senior year. He found the bat. He dominated this league. Great clutch hitter. When Alabama needed a hit in the 9th inning to win the game, this is exactly the guy Alabama wanted at the plate, was Brady Neal. He would come through more often than not. I'm very excited to see how he's going to do in Cincinnati because he is a mature kid. He could also make it to the majors quick because there's some maturity there, some toughness. He's a captain type guy. And there's some real athleticism for a catcher. Again, they move him from catcher to right field. You don't see that a lot. So I was very happy that Brady and Justin LeBron ended up in the same place. These were the number 2 and 3 hitters in the lineup for Alabama this season.
Does the state of Louisiana allow someone to go from LSU to Alabama? I didn't know that was allowed.
I'm sure they weren't thrilled with it, but at the same time, Brady will be the first to tell you he struggled as a young college player. It was a struggle for him, especially with the bat. But he figured it out in year 4. And in the SEC, you're facing some high quality pitching. No question. That's true. I think Brady Neal, leave it to the Bama homer to say he's a steal in the 8th round, but he played like a major leaguer in this past year. And I'm not sure the scouts even had his name before the senior season because the bat was so bad. But boy, he found it this year, was a good player. Again, provided some protection for Justin in the lineup and led Alabama in RBIs and hits this past season. Didn't play a lot of catcher, but he's more of a defensive guy first, in my opinion. So I'm really excited for the Reds to have both of Alabama's best hitters.
Jimmy and Luke Robinson combined for the best Crimson Tide coverage anywhere there is over on Locked On Bama. Y'all got to go check him out during all seasons because, well, football season never stops, but certainly basketball as well has been really good down there in Bama for a while too. So lots of good stuff going on over at Locked On Bama. Jimmy, I appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for having me on, and good luck to you all in the second half.
That'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Reds podcast. Thanks so much for making us part of your day. I invite you to join the Everydayer Club. Make sure you go to lockedonreds.supercast.com to get ad-free episodes and so much more coming for you with that. $5 a month, $50 for the whole year. Link is also down in the description below. Tomorrow on the podcast, we're really going to dive more so into how the Reds roster looks over the next couple of years because unfortunately, we've reached that period of point in time where we say, all right, next year, I guess. We'll talk about next year on tomorrow's Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure you join us. And that'll do it for us here, though. Make sure you check out Tim Daniel Friday night on the Reds postcast. He goes live at the end of every ball game. He's got you covered every single day. And then Steve and I are being your feeds the following morning. That's all here on Locked On Reds, where we are Locked On Reds every single day.